a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
All right, welcome to the Consumer Quarterback Show. We've got attorney Frank Miranda in the house with us, FCM Law, and also NFL agent. We're going to talk about some of the things he's doing in the NFL, representing athletes. CPA Dwayne Bischoff in the house as well. We're going to talk about tax implications and other items facing small business owners and medium-sized business owners out there as well. And then Fred Muth rounding out our expert contributor panel today. Tampa Screens and Aluminum, our contractor extraordinaire on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Before we do, we want to give a shout-out to Lawn Anglers. Shout-out to Adam Long and his team over at Lawn Anglers. If you're thinking about hiring a landscaping company, we highly recommend Lawn Anglers. They do a great job. Lawn maintenance, landscaping, mulching, tree trimming, and yard cleanouts. Say hello to Adam Long at Lawn Anglers. Let him know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you. Take him up on those special offers. All right, we always like to feature our real estate listings live on air as well. It's part of a strategy that we employ to help sellers sell faster for more money. And we've got a great property here. We just listed this one. It's a commercial property at 2907 North Florida Avenue. 2907 North Florida Avenue. Commercial property here in Tampa Bay. We've got about 13,000 square feet. $2.89 million listing of ours at 2907 North Florida Avenue in Tampa. You have a mixed use here of office space up front. You got 3 or 4 offices up front. You also have a warehouse space that is also retail space, and you have plenty of parking, lots of storage there, extra storage. And again, it's a great corner lot location close to downtown Tampa, and you are also a tenant there as well that's on site. You have a tenant building that's being rented out at $6,500 a month. That would be great passive income at 2907 North Florida Avenue, one of our commercial listings from the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams Realty. And you can see all of our listings at platinumcoastalelite.com.
Yeah, I'm raising my glass to those saving our ass overseas.
All right, attorney Frank Miranda in the house, in studio. Welcome back, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Likewise. Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. And yeah, let's jump right into it, man. Real estate. We'll start real estate. Talk a little NFL too. What are you seeing on the real estate side?
From the real estate's perspective, the volume isn't quite there back when it was in 2000, 2001, but there's still activity.
Yep.
And still activity to a level where even the higher price points are being sold.
Yep.
I can tell you there's still litigation being involved in regarding transactions. I've filed a number of lawsuits this past 60 days involving escrow disputes, involving ownership rights with people who have an ownership interest but weren't placed on a deed. But it's pretty clear that they have an interest in the property based upon money transactions and that type of thing.
Yep.
But aside from that, it's pretty typical, I would say, in some regard. I mean, it certainly wasn't the windfall.
Right.
Where it was people bidding up over and above a sales price.
Yep.
But if you're priced right, and I know we've talked about it all the time, if you're priced right and you have a good product to sell, you're going to sell it probably get it under contract clearly within 30 days.
Yep. Here's the latest stats, by the way. Just got this delivered to me from my office. So Hillsborough County residential listings here in Hillsborough County. If you look at the solds divided by the listed, that gives us a 70% absorption rate. And you had 1,399 sold, so almost 1,400 properties sold, and there are 1,988 listed. So divide that, that's 70% absorption rate. Divide that by 100, that gives you a 1.43 month supply of inventory, Frank. So we're still at a low inventory market. Seems like the theme for the last 5 or 6 years still.
Yeah, and people are really happy with the houses they're in now. I mean, they have low interest rates, so they don't want to give that up to either upgrade or downsize because interest rates are a little bit higher. I think interest rates are certainly going to go down. They've already trickled down a couple of notches in the last 60 days.
Yep.
And so you're going to see more of that next year. And so, at the end of the day, whatever slowdown we had, we talked about it off air, it's been a softer landing, certainly than what we had in 2009, 2008, when it was tough.
Yeah, exactly.
It was tough then.
Yeah, because that's the last buyer's market that we saw, because you had so much bank inventory being unloaded and pushed out. You had a bunch of the cash buyers benefiting from that. But yeah, completely different market, and that's what's interesting about real estate is there's going to be a need for housing. There's always a need for housing, but there's also some legislation going on too that in Congress. I haven't followed that closely. I talked about it in I think last week's show, but where they're trying to say, hey, no more of these big hedge funds buying up single-family homes at the levels that they were doing it earlier, and I think that's a good thing.
I think it's a fantastic thing because they can artificially inflate the prices of homes.
Yep.
I can't prove that this happens, but I can say I certainly suspect that if they go into a neighborhood and they intentionally overpay by $20,000, $30,000 for a piece of property, and then they buy other properties in the neighborhood at a regular price, they've just now have a comp that supports a higher purchase price. So when they go to sell it, it's a $30,000 more piece of property. So, at the end of the day, I think that's good for the consumer, that it's not being bought. Houses aren't being purchased in bulk. And at the end of the day, we've talked about this also, those same companies like to have these discount type of cookie cutter, assembly line type of closing with the promises of things being cheaper than they actually really turn out to be.
Right.
And so there's a lot of hidden fees that aren't necessarily disclosed, or if they're disclosed, they're certainly not in a prominent area, or they're in small print, or whatever the case may be. So I always recommend going with somebody that has a proven track record, that has a great reputation locally, like yourself, about being a professional, making sure the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Right.
And at the end of the day, you effectively get what you pay for. I recently came into a situation where there was a discount broker involved in a sale. The discount broker approached my client, who ended up being a buyer, and said that if you don't give us $10,000 in cash, we're not going to show up to closing. They didn't show up to closing. And so when I heard the story, I said, that's not a problem. We're going to make them close at the price that you had contracted for.
Exactly.
And so I filed a suit, and we filed a list pendants. They're not going to be able to sell that property to anybody. And at the end of the day, we're going to win.
I love it.
And in addition to that, because he was trying to hustle my client for $10,000, he's going to have the luxury of paying my attorney's fees.
Nice.
So he's going to net less.
Yeah. Wow, I love those stories, because here's somebody that says, "Hey, I'm going to try to bulldog this guy, bully this guy," and then you end up coming in and saying, "Well, actually, you have a contract. We're going to sue you for specific performance," and the court is most likely going to agree. I mean, what is it, a 90%, 99%, right? I mean, at that point,
if I lose that one, I'll come in here and eat crow.
There you go. Right. So you have it. I mean, these are cases that happen though, because the average lay person that doesn't know, and they just kind of fall for that. Well, what do you mean? I thought we had a deal. They're going to renegotiate that deal, but no, you got it again. And here's the other thing I wanted to go to on this topic, Frank. We're talking with attorney Frank Miranda here in studio. He's a litigator. He goes to court. He's different from some of these other attorneys that may not necessarily actually go to court. They do these settlement things, but that's another topic. But Frank, when you look at some of these companies like Open Door and these other, so-called iBuyers, right? A lot of those guys, if I recall, they had multi-million-dollar settlement against them. There was a couple of them that may have had a big settlement. But those are the types of companies that you got to really be careful because when we interview these people, Keller Williams is the #1 real estate company in the world. We do a lot of market research on these types of things. When you interview the clients on the back end, a lot of times were lied to. They weren't told the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God, They get to the closing table and it's like, oh well, we didn't know this fee was there, this convenience fee, and so it ends up being a higher percentage than a 6% listing that you would pay a realtor, which by the way is split equally with the buyer agent most of the time. It should be so 3% here, 3% there. Now you both get representation, and to me, it's a pretty fair deal that way. But people go for the convenience factor is my point there.
Yeah, and I'll say this, sometimes, people have the concept of, well, let's just go someplace that has everything in-house. The problem you have when that occurs is that the loyalty doesn't go to the best interest of the consumer.
Right.
The loyalty goes to the best interest of the company, who's the parent company of the real estate company, of the inspection company, of the title company. Everyone involved in that transaction kicks up money to the parent company.
Yep.
And they have loyalty not to the consumer, they have loyalty to the bottom dollar, and they have loyalty to the shareholders.
That's right.
Now, at the end of the day, if I'm selling a piece of property and that's one of my largest asset,
yep,
I want to make sure just like separation of government. I want to make sure that the title company is independent from the realtor.
Yep.
I want to make sure that the inspector is independent from everyone else because I want the truth.
Yep.
I don't want someone to, brush something aside and not let me know that, hey, this roof is a bad roof because I'm owned by the real estate company.
Exactly.
If it doesn't close, they don't get paid.
Yep.
I don't want that.
Yep.
And so I would recommend to people that they deal with people that don't get kickbacks, that they deal with people that have the integrity and the reputation to protect their clients in the best interest of their clients.
Yep.
And if you do the right thing at the end of the day, you're going to make money because people are going to trust you, and the word of mouth continues to get spread on.
Yep.
And that only benefits everyone.
Frank, I wanted to shift gears too because this is pretty cool. I love the fact that you are an NFL agent. You're representing athletes now. That's got to be a really cool kind of a dynamic, a newer part of your business, if I recall, about the last year or two, couple
Right.
years.
So we became certified last year. Name of the agency is For Life Management. The message is completely different than what these young men hear now. The message is we're going to watch you not only during your playing days, but afterward. We're going to look at and make sure that your legal needs are met, and we're going to make sure that you can avoid litigation, and we're certainly going to make sure that you budget your money.
I love that.
What's really cool about this situation is that so many young men and even their parents realize that message is important, and no one's talking about it.
Yeah.
It also gives you a really cool platform. And what I mean by that is, we kind of had an underdog we represented last year, an undrafted free agent out of Louisiana, punt returner, defensive back, and the Titans picked him up, and he made rookie training camp. He had a tryout for it. He made that portion of it, and so he was invited to camp. Out of camp, they sent him to the practice squad, and then within 4 games, he's been up with a big team.
Nice.
What's great about it, and what's trying to parallel this a little bit with social media. Social media I'm not a big fan of. However, social media is great when you're trying to get a message out. So my son, who's also heavily involved and has his master's in sports management, came across a story of a young man in Tennessee, 7-year-old boy, Landon Binkley. Landon Binkley is a die-hard Titans fan. He's 7 years old. He's been on a ventilator for 3 weeks or so. And he has issues because he was a premature baby, and so he's always had health issues. But he has season tickets to the Titans. That's all he cares about. So when we found out about this, his mom's a single mother. She quit her job to be next to her son in an ICU unit.
Wow.
And so we wanted to draw attention to this, and we were fortunate enough to use Eric Guerra, who was our client in Tennessee, who also, when we told him this story, wanted to get involved. We wanted to bring this story to a bigger attention audience.
Love it.
And so what we did is we customized some cleats. Green is branded as Landon's favorite color, so we customized some cleats. The artist who did this did a tremendous job on these cleats. There's a little boy flying in a superhero costume holding the Titan shield and sword. Landon's name's on the cleats. Eric's going to sign the cleats and give them to Landon. Unfortunately, Landon has not been really active. He's not in a coma, but he's not been very responsive. Yesterday, there was some break in his treatment and his care, and he was able to communicate by nodding. So there's a GoFundMe page and for Landon, and so we brought this to the attention. The Titans were great. They allowed Eric to wear his cleats during pregame warmup. He wore the cleats in pregame warmup. And he's going to take those cleats over to the hospital and give them to Landon. Hopefully, Landon's awake when he does that. In addition to that,
Help for Landon and Ashley. By the way, I believe that's the name of the page. The title, GoFundMe, and it's Help for Landon and Ashley on GoFundMe. They've got about $15,526 raised out of $20,000 goal. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, and so what's great, too, is I contacted a colleague of mine who I became friends with. He works for the newspaper up there, the Tennesseans. His name's Nick Suss. Great guy, great writer. He wrote a tremendous article about this. It got published, I believe, yesterday.
Awesome.
I read the article. I immediately called Nick. I said, you did a tremendous job in relaying this kid's story. This is a great Christmas story. Everyone's pulling for this young man. I mean, obviously, anyone that's going through any type of medical situation is devastating.
Yeah.
But when it's a young person who hasn't had the ability to enjoy life, and he's been in and out of hospitals his entire 7-year career, life, I should say.
Yeah.
It's even more devastating. So we wanted to really bring this out, especially now during Christmas, and hopefully help this young man and this single mother with any need they may have.
I love it. Yeah, check out that page as well. And if you want more information, Frank Miranda, FCMlaw.com, Frank Charles Miranda Law.com. Frank's in studio. Help for Landon and Ashley is the GoFundMe page. Help for Landon and Ashley. So you can check that out as well. In the final minute or so, minute we have here, so I wanted to mention we were talking a little bit about the Florida State game, and kind of a lot of people were upset about that, and I can kind of see both arguments.
I was devastated. I'm a Florida State alumni.
Yeah, a lot of people were, man. A lot of people were. Even the senators started writing letters and getting involved and all that stuff. But I don't know. You lose your quarterback. You have a strength of schedule thing, but you go undefeated as a coach and as kids. You're like, man, we went undefeated. We're a Power 5 team or whatever they call it. But the game against Georgia, you're saying they may not even play their starters, right?
Well, there's so many in Georgia too, right? There's so many young men that team's gotten so good. There's so many young men that are going to the next level that they're going to opt out, and that happens for Georgia too. So there's going to be a lot of backups playing for both teams.
Millions on the line,
and so we're in a different era.
Yep, that's right.
And these guys are used to getting paid a stipend for NIL. Yep. And so it's just a different way of thinking. And so I don't think we're going to really see the game we would have seen if both teams had been completely up to snuff.
Right, yeah, exactly, especially if they're playing for the number one.
But if you want to talk about that, I'll say this. If you compare our record to Michigan, to me, Michigan only beat one good team.
Right.
And their non-conference schedule is awful.
Yeah, man. I think, look, Florida State, Florida, I grew up loving all the Florida teams, and I remember the first time going into USF, too. It was like, I'm a Bull now. I'm a USF Bull. A bunch of us knuckleheads had on other team shirts. Coach Levitt chewed us out. He's like, hey, those are your competitors. I don't ever want to see you with that shirt on again. So it's kind of a paradigm shift, though, know?
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. That's almost our time for today, Frank. How can people connect with you, man?
Yeah, you can email me at frank@fcmlaw.com. Or you can call our office at 813-254-2637. Happy to help anyone out and answer some of their questions.
Frank at FCMlaw.com, and shout out to Stephanie and the team over there. They do a great job, man.
I appreciate that, Brandon.
My pleasure. All right, we're taking a quick break here. We're going to come back with our CPA of the show, our expert contributor, Dwayne Bischoff, in the house. CPA Dwayne Bischoff and Associates on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.
To get it.